Virtual Conference webinar brought to you and Constant Contact. My name is Alexa, and I am a webinar producer at SCORE, and I will also be the moderator for this webinar session. We are joined by Dave Charest, Director of Content Marketing with Constant Contact, who will be presenting Get New and Repeat Business on Autopilot with Email Marketing. Now, before I turn the session on over to Dave, I would like to make mention of just a few housekeeping items. Today's session will last an hour. The webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and slide deck will be emailed to all of our participants. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of today's presentation. So if you have any questions, please submit those using the Q&A box located on the left-hand side of your screen. Also, if you have any technical difficulties and need assistance, please use the Q&A box to submit those. We'd like to begin. Get new and repeat business on Autopilot with email marketing. Hi, Dave. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn the session on over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexa. Thank you. And as Alexa mentioned, thank you to everyone on the line joining us today for how to get new and repeat business on Autopilot with email marketing. I'm very excited to be here and share this information with you. And I am willing to bet that if you are anything like many of the businesses that we talk to, it's likely you're concerned with the following things you see on the screen here. Finding new customers, not having enough time to do everything that you want to do, and retaining your existing customers. And the reason I'm so excited about being here to share this information with you here today is because today I actually want to give you some practical email marketing ideas to solve for each of these concerns. So before we get into that, though, I actually want to challenge you a little bit here to flip this list that I was just talking about a bit by putting retaining new customers at the top of this list. Now, why would we want to do this? Well, really for two main reasons. The first of which is that gaining a new customer can be 5 to 25 times more expensive than retaining an existing one. And a 5% increase in retention actually can increase profits between 25 to 95%. Now, I'm really liking the way that sounds, and I'm sure that you do too. And so really what this means to me is that it's really important to focus on relationships with your existing customers. And we believe at Constant Contact that one of the easiest ways to create and grow those relationships is with email marketing. So why do we believe this? Well, 91% of consumers actually check their email at least once a day. And so what that means is that email really allows you to reach people in a place that they visit every day. And because you're reaching them in a place that they've actually invited you, the inbox, email actually feels a lot more personal than something like a public forum, something like social media. And it's really this personal nature that makes email so effective. And in fact, your customers actually expect more personalized communications from you. A recent study has shown that 52% of consumers are likely to switch brands if a company doesn't personalize communications. So maybe you're thinking, well, what do we mean here by personalized? And really what I'd like you to do is start to think about it in two ways. So the first thing is really think about it as a one-to-one message, right? So a person should feel like you're talking to them directly and not to a group of people. So I'm sure many of you on the line here today are probably familiar with the term, and maybe you use it yourself, but you're familiar with the term email blast. Now, I would really like to encourage you not to think of email marketing as though you're blasting a message out to many people. Instead, really think about trying to mimic what the conversation would be like if you were face-to-face with your customer whenever possible. And a simple shift like this will really allow you to create more powerful matter. offers, information, and conversations should feel timely and relevant to the people you're sending them to for you to get the best results. So a message with tips on buying your first home doesn't really make a lot of sense to someone who's in the process of selling their first home. Nor does a message about puppy supplies to someone who owns an older cat. You can see where I'm going with this, right? If your messages really miss the mark here in terms of time and relevance, you're going to get lackluster results. Now, speaking of results, one of the things that we've seen in recent studies is that personalized promotional emails typically receive an 11% higher open rate. And on top of that, the personalized promotional emails you actually have a huge advantage over the big guys because you're often face-to-face with your customers and you know them personally. So knowing what we know about all of this, it really points us towards the big question. How can you use email to get new and repeat business most effectively? And that's what we're really going to try to answer today. And so what we're going to cover is how to turn 150% or up to 150% more website visitors into new contacts. We're going to talk about how to automate timely engagement with those new contacts. And then we're going to talk about how to do more business by sending relevant emails. So hopefully that sounds good to everybody on the line. Before we dive in today, again, as Alexa mentioned, my name is Dave Charest, and I'm the Director of Content Marketing at Constant Contact. And my team and I at Constant Contact are on a mission to really help small businesses do more business with email marketing. I have over 12 years experience doing just that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here with you today and share some of the strategies and tactics that you can actually start to apply to your business. So with that out of the way, let's jump in here to part one, how to turn up to 150% more website visitors into new contacts. So I have a question for you. Is it easier to reach people when you have their contact information or when you don't? Now, I don't really have to wait too long to answer that, right? The answer is pretty obvious, isn't it? When you have an email address, you're actually able to influence whether or not someone returns to your website or comes back to your store. Plain and simple. An email, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, gives you that ability to reach customers in a place that they visit every day, which is their inbox. And with the prevalence of mobile technology, you can actually reach those people wherever they are. So today, what we're going to focus on is how you can increase the email signups you get from your website by up to 150%. So how are we going to do that? Well, by using what we call a dynamic signup form. So what do we mean by dynamic signup form? So typically, when you visit a website, you're going to see something, and you're probably using one of these yourself, but you'll see a static form embedded somewhere on the page, like on the example on the screen. Now, these forms actually rely on your visitor to seek them out. It's what we call passive, okay? A dynamic form, on the other hand, is a more effective way to entice these contacts because the form is active. It presents itself to your visitor after a specified period of time or when they're about to leave your website. Now, what's exciting about these dynamic forms is that we've seen them increase email signups as much as 150%. Now, I know what you're thinking of, I hate pop-up forms. Isn't that what you're just telling me right now, Dave, right? Well, here's the thing. Yes, it's called a pop-up form. We like the term dynamic form because it indicates that there's motion there happening with it. But the idea here is that most people, and the reason why most people hate pop-up forms is because most people aren't using them the right way. And the reality is it's really hard to argue with the effectiveness of these forms. So what I want to do here is give you some tips on how to use these forms the right way so both you and your website visitors don't hate them. So here's tip number one. Really, you need to stop asking people to join your email list. So this is the last thing that you want to make this form about because nobody ever wakes up in the morning saying, I can't wait to get more email today, right? Like nobody says that. And that's really one of the main reasons why people hate sign-up forms because they're interrupting the person from doing what they want to do and they're not providing any actual value. So instead, what you want to do is focus on providing value with your dynamic form. So what does that mean? Well, that leads us to tip number two is really what you want your form to do is focus on what's in it for them. So we've actually surveyed consumers and asked them the reasons why they subscribe to email lists, and this is what they told us. They told us it's to receive promotions or discounts, it's to receive exclusive content, and it's also to receive or show support for an organization. So what you want to do is frame how you ask for email addresses by offering something in return that feels extremely valuable to the person entering that information or exchanging that information with you. So let's look at some examples of what this actually means. So on the screen here, you're going to see a dynamic form from Southside Cycling. So now if you'll notice on the headline there, they're not asking people to join their email list. Instead, they're highlighting what people will get in exchange for their email address, which in this case is 15% off their first purchase. Now, the description there goes on to highlight the exclusive access to discounts and resources that they're also going to receive in the future. So maybe something like this, depending on the nature of your business, actually makes sense for you as well. So let's take a look at another example. Here on the screen, this is a business-to-business example here from Giraldi Consulting. Now, notice that they're not just asking, again, people to sign up to get email. They're asking people to sign up to receive a free consultation. Now, the form also lets people know that they're going to receive future emails with exclusive content to help them market their business. Again, they're focused on the value. Now, maybe you can think of something that you can offer people in exchange for their email address. Maybe there's an educational ebook, a white paper, or some type of step-by-step guide or something like that. Let's look at one more example here for a nonprofit. Now, in this dynamic form for Hearts and Tails, it's all about getting a free adoption guide. So you'll notice here that they mentioned sign up to receive a free adoption guide, and then we'll guide you through the adoption process to find the right dog for your family. You'll also learn about our animals, events, and volunteer opportunities. Together, we can find forever homes for our animal friends, okay? Again, nothing here is really about the emails other than asking them for their email address. So these are just a few examples here really to get you thinking. But really, you can use any of these ideas here and adjust them for the needs of your particular business. Now, when you use these dynamic forms in combination with these types of offers, again, now you're not just interrupting your website visitors, you're actually presenting them with something they may find valuable. And as I've mentioned earlier, we've seen these forms increase signups as much as 150%. So before we move on to our next section, I'd just like to recap some of the stuff that we've just talked about. So these are some things to remember about your email list and using these forms is that, one, we know that you're going to do more business if you have an email address than if you don't, right? Just because you have a way to contact them and encourage people to do business with you again. Dynamic forms, rather than those static forms, actually can increase the number of signups you get from your website by up to 150%. And if you focus on what your contact gets in exchange for their email address, you're going to have a much better result from that and not upset people because they're getting hit by a dynamic form. So now once you have these people on your list, this is actually a highly engaged moment with your business. It's a highly engaged moment in time. And so how do you best take advantage of this highly engaged time? Well, that's what we're going to cover here in part 2, or how to automate timely engagement with new contacts. So let's take a look here. Have you ever been guilty of this? On the screen there, you're going to see an email example from Constant Contact customer Peter Lovis, and he's the owner of the Cheese Shop in Concord, Massachusetts, one of my favorite establishments. And he has the sign-up sheet at his register for what he calls his sometimes monthly newsletter. Now, it's honest, to say the least, but there's something actually wrong with this undisciplined line of thinking when it comes to mailing frequency. And so I'd like you to imagine with me here a likely scenario, and it's probably one that you may even be familiar with, but someone decides to just subscribe to this sometimes monthly email newsletter. And since Peter just sent his newsletter the day before they signed up, sometimes monthly actually ends up being 3 months before the new subscriber ever even hears from the Cheese Shop again in their inbox. Well, after that long of a gap between sign up and first communication, it's likely this new subscriber may even forget that they signed up for this list in the first place. And so Peter has actually missed out on this period of time where the new subscriber is most engaged with his business. So how do we solve for this type of problem happening? Well, obviously, we could say make sure that you're sending more frequently and not a sometimes monthly newsletter. But what we also recommend that you do is you actually set up a short automated, what we call a welcome series, to ensure that your new contacts hear from you right away when they're most engaged. So let me give you an example of what this looks like. So as I mentioned, when someone signs up for your email list, it's a time when the new contact is highly engaged with your business, right? They've come to your site or they've had a one-on-one interaction with you, and they feel really good about that experience, and they're really interested in what you have to offer them beyond that. And so you really want to make sure that you take advantage of this time. And so to do this, as I mentioned, we recommend using 2 emails in a welcome series. And this first email that you're going to send is what we call the delivery or the welcome email. So your new contact, once they are added to your list or join your list, they should receive this email immediately after they sign up. And its purpose is to fulfill on that offer that you entice them to sign up with and to welcome them to your email list. So then you can also set some expectations on what they're going to receive from you in the future. So if we take a look at the example on the screen there, you can see that there's a thank you for joining us, and there's a coupon on there that says enjoy 15% off. And that's what people were asking them to, in exchange for the email address, we're going to give you 15% off your next purchase, right? So this is your chance to really make a great first impression, as it's the first communication that a subscriber is going to receive from you. So at this point, your new contact is feeling good about their experience with you. And around 2 days later, this frequency you can determine on your own, but a good rule of thumb is a couple of days later in this welcome series is you're going to follow up with what we call an invitation to connect. Now, this is the second email in your welcome series. And as I mentioned, you can send this email 2 or 3 days after the delivery welcome email. Now, the purpose of this invitation to connect is to let your new contact know all the different ways that they can actually engage with your business. And so if you have active social media profiles, this is where you can invite them to connect with you there. So why would we want to do this? And why would we want our contacts to connect with us on social media? Well, one of the reasons is that your business will then have more opportunities to stay top of mind with your contacts beyond the inbox. And the other reason is that if your contacts actually engage with you on social media, that engagement increases your exposure to their connections, who are likely to also make great prospects for your business or organization. So hopefully that makes sense, right? So now, in addition to your social media channels, you'll also want to provide them other information they may need to know in order to get in touch with you. And this could be information like your phone number, email address, physical address if you have one. And if you have, and if relevant, you can include your store hours as well. So that lets them know the times that they can actually do business with you. So if you take a look at this example here from Southside Cycling, it's just saying you're invited, asking if they're on social media, and letting them know to connect with them on their social media sites for the latest conversations and exclusives. So there's a good example there for email number 2. Let's take a look at another example here. So we're going to go back to our business-to-business example, and we're going to talk about Giraldi Consulting. So again, here's the situation that happens. Someone goes to their website, dynamic form comes up. They enter the information into that form to get the offer. In this case, it's a free consultation. And then this first email delivers on what the offer was by allowing the contact to schedule their free consultation. It also welcomes the new subscriber and sets some expectations on what they can expect in the future. Now, email 2, as we mentioned, is our invitation to connect. And so it invites the contact to connect with them on their social media profiles to get the full experience. Now, again, by connecting on social media, their clients are going to stay up to date on recent developments in the industry and get more marketing tips and tricks. So really, this helps Giraldi Consulting to build their social networks and get more exposure for their business. And they may also include some other contact information here so people know how to get in touch with them beyond that. Let's take a look at one more example of how this will work. Again, we're back to our nonprofit example here. So our nonprofit Hearts and Tails Animal Rescue, the dynamic form to the website, offered a free dog training ebook when people sign up. So you know what happens here, right? The first email delivers that asset by providing a clickable button to a PDF of the adoption guide. It welcomes the new contact and lets them know how valuable their support is to the organization while setting those expectations for the future emails that they can receive. And what does our second email do? Well, it asks the contact to share the love and to connect with them on social media. Because the more people that like their social pages, the more the word will spread about this nonprofit organization. And then there's the nonprofit contact information, along with a button for people to donate. So hopefully you can start to see now how this welcome series starts to help start those relationships with people and why they're so important for your business or nonprofit. So let's just recap some of this information here. So the thing I want you to remember is that timely engagement really matters, especially when somebody is joining your list for the first time. So what you want to remember is you can actually automate that process to build those relationships and increase the future likelihood of sales. Use a simple welcome series. We mentioned that that is 2 emails. One, the delivery welcome email delivers the offer that you made to folks in order or in exchange for their email address, and it welcomes your new contact. And then email 2 invites them to connect with you on other channels, so you'll have more opportunities to stay top of mind with them. So what happens in the future? What should you do from here? Well, that moves us to part 3. And that is how to do more business by sending more relevant emails. So, we talked about how important timely and relevant information is. And it's important to really understand that all of the contacts on your list are unique and they have different needs and interests in regards to your business. And so if you start to share irrelevant information with them, it really gets easy for them to tune you out and stop paying attention. We also mentioned how important timeliness is when it comes to your marketing. And so if your contact isn't ready for the information that you want to share with them, it's really going to fall on deaf ears and they're not going to pay attention to that either. But what if I told you you could ensure that you're sending timely and relevant emails to the right people at the right time, really increasing the effectiveness of those messages that you're sending out? And better still, you can actually automate much of this process to save you time, right? So I'm hoping you're shaking your head going, well, that sounds pretty great. Well, I want to show you how you would do that. So let's take a look here. So the first thing we want to do is find an interested audience within your existing contacts. And in order to do this, we're going to use what we call click segmentation and automation together. So, okay, what is click segmentation? So click segmentation is the term for that click the link into a list based on them clicking it and showing interest in that particular thing. So here's an example. You take a look on the screen there and we see Southside Cycling. Okay, so now Southside Cycling knows that people who are part of their cycling club actually end up spending more than those who haven't joined the cycling club. And so one of the things Southside Cycling likes to do is they really like to encourage people to join the club. And so what they do is they send an email about the club to their general interest list. And so this is an email to pretty much everyone on their list. And they send that email out with the goal of allowing people who may be interested in the club to actually self-segment themselves into a cycling club prospect list that happens in the background when they click on that link to find out more. So once the contact clicks that link, they're taken to a page with some more information. But behind the scenes, what's happening is the click segmentation is actually adding those people that clicked to that cycling club prospect list, which then you can have that set up to trigger some automation that sends some timely and relevant follow-up information to those people who have actually expressed interest. So in this particular series, or scenario, the contact is going to receive 3 follow-up emails at varying frequency. And each email is going to highlight a different aspect of the club to entice contacts to join. So let me show you what that looks like. And this is a sequence that you can feel free to copy and try to apply to your business as well. And so the first email is to give reasons why. So the first email here highlights reasons why someone should consider joining the club. And so you'll notice there the headline is 3 reasons to join our cycling club. And then it goes on to give them number 1, number 2, number 3. These are the reasons why we think you'll enjoy the club and why you should join. And then there's a call to action there, that big red button that says sign up today, and that brings people to the page where they can get started signing up, right? So that's the first email in the series. A few days later, or depending on the frequency that you want, we're going to move to email number 2 that goes out. And again, these are all people that have expressed interest in the club. And what this is going to do is highlight a unique aspect of the club and give them some more information about why they may, again, want to join the club. So you'll see here that this email presents John, who's one of their cycling club group leaders, and gives a little bit of information about him, and shares some of the information that he shares with the team members. And so you can actually get the call to action there again to sign up for the next meetup. Now, email 3 does something we call invoke the fear of missing out, or FOMO, right? And you may have heard that term. And so this third email shares some photos of other club members to invoke this fear of missing out. And what you've just seen here is, again, through this whole process, you've seen someone showing interest by clicking on a link on a general email that has gone out, and then automatically receive timely and relevant information about that thing. And so once you set this up, it continues to work for you on autopilot, and it's based on when someone clicks the link to get added to the list with automation attached. And so if someone clicks a link in your original email gauging interest about your cycling club today or next week, they're actually going to receive the same series of emails and series of information based on their timeline. Hopefully that makes sense. And let's take a look at another example here. So we're going to go back to our B2B or business to business example, and we're going to talk about this idea of finding an interested audience. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to send to our broad group of contacts, right? And so Giraldi Consulting, in this case, sent an email to gauge interest in their website design service. So they set up click segmentation so that when people click on the scan my website button, they're added to a list called website design prospects in the back end of their account. And so what this does, we call this kind of an action series, right? Its goal is to drive people to take some type of action. And we're going to show how this applies to Giraldi Consulting here. So the series is set up, same type of setup, it's just gives them 3 reasons why they should redesign their website. And this email includes a link or a call to action to schedule a consultation. Now, email 2, they're highlighting their over 32 years of experience that they have in website design and how they can, help their clients be more successful, okay? And their third email invokes this fear of missing out by sharing some testimonials about the service and the great results that other people have gotten by working with them. So that's just one example from a B2B. Let's go to our nonprofit example here again. And this is, again, our first job is to find an interested audience within our existing contact group. So we send this message out to a broad group of contacts, find people that are interested, in this case, a particular dog, and then we follow up with that timely, relevant information. So in this example specifically, they send the initial email to their broader audience to see who may be interested in adopting this black lab Chuck, okay? Now, when people click the button, they're taken to an interest form on the website and then added to a Chuck black lab adoption list behind the scenes, which again, this triggers an automated series of emails. So if we look at that, in this case, again, we're following the same basic structure. Email 1 is to give reasons why. Email 2 highlights a unique aspect. And email 3 invokes the fear of missing out, but does so in relation to the particular business or nonprofit in this case. So in this case, email 1 provides some stats on the reasons why people would want to adopt Chuck. Then email 2 provides a unique aspect about this particular dog and the fact that he makes friends very easily. And in the third and final email, they talk about how fast dogs like Chuck are actually adopted to entice people to actually act quickly so that they don't miss out on this being the owner of this dog. So hopefully at this point, through these examples, I'm hoping that you're seeing how something like this can actually start to work for your business. And the ideas really start to become endless as to the different ways that you can do things here with that. So with that, let me actually recap what we've talked about here in this section. So the goal here for us is to send timely, relevant emails and actually save ourselves some time while we do that. And what we want to do is gauge interest from contacts by sending them that general message and seeing if they're interested in those things. And that is automatically going to create an interest list for you. And then you're going to use automation to automate the relevant follow-up emails to that particular list of interested people. So with that said, let's just review kind of everything that we talked about here today. And really, what we were saying that we should really think about in order to kind of put your marketing on autopilot and get new and repeat businesses, to really think about using dynamic sign-up forms to increase your signups by up to 150%. Because the more people that you have on your list, the more opportunities that you have to actually have more opportunities to get more people to do business with you. You're going to really want to think about creating a welcome series so you immediately engage new contacts as they're added to your list. Because when you do that, you're engaging with them at a time when they're actually highly engaged with your business. And that's the perfect opportunity to start building those relationships with them. And then lastly, use click segmentation and automation together to send timely and relevant content. That way you're going to start to see better results because you're sending them information that they're actually showing some interest in, and it's timely based on actions that they're taking. So really what happens is by following the ideas here that we've given you, that you're actually able to better retain your existing customers, you're better able to find new customers, you can actually save yourself some precious time in the process. So if there's one thing I'd like to encourage you to do after you leave today's session here and after we finish up with our Q&A today, is I'd really like you to look into setting up some dynamic forms. Because as we mentioned, the more people that you have to contact, the more likely you are to increase your business. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time today, and may your business always be moving up and to the right. And I'd ask Alexa to come back and join us, and we'll see if we can take any of your questions live here today.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dave. We will now start the Q&A portion of our webinar. I'm going to read the chat questions that our participants have been sending in and are sending in. In this time remaining, we will address just as many as we can. And please note that if we do not have time to address your question, I encourage you to connect with a SCORE mentor after the webinar. Mentors are available today in the mentoring hall. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll take these questions. Dave, our first question comes to us from Sheila. And she'd like to know, when advertising through email, how do you stay out of the spam folder or trash bin before it's been seen?
That's a great question, Sheila. So I think it's a combination of the things that we've talked about here today. So I think first and foremost, what we want to understand about email marketing is it's what we would call a permission-based marketing channel. And what that means is that people are actually giving you permission to send them email. They're actually raising their hand and they're saying, yes, I want to hear from you. I want you to send me information. So that's the first thing. So you want to make sure whatever you're doing or whenever you're sending emails to potential customers or your existing customers, that they're opting in to receive those emails from you. And that actually keeps you on the right side of getting permission and being viewed as spam. I'm sure you've many people I'm sure on the line today have attended an event or gone someplace where you may have given somebody your business card, and nobody said anything to you other than you were just exchanging cards because you wanted to connect with that person. But the next thing you know, you're starting to get information from people about emails from these people, and you didn't even really ask to get that information, right? So this is why it's really important to get permission first. Secondly, I think another way to really think about not getting moved to the trash is, again, we talked about this idea of timely and relevant information. And one of the biggest things that you can think about doing is asking yourself with every email you send, one, don't think of them as email blasts, as we mentioned earlier today. You really want to think about them as notes you're sending to people as if they were standing in front of you, and you're providing value within that situation. And so if you can do that, you will be better off in terms of ending up in the trash folder. And then the relevant information points us to this idea of, if you actually better understand your customers and you're giving them the opportunities to actually show interest in things, and you're paying attention to that and using that to think about how you're going to send the right things to the right people at the right times, the information is going to feel more relevant to them and more useful to them, and they're actually going to be better off for you. And so you're gonna find yourself increasing your open rates, getting more people clicking through, and more people taking the actions that you would like them to take.
All
so
right,
hopefully that
Dave.
answers that question.
Okay, Dave, our next question, it comes from Kathleen, and she would like to know how you best balance the amount of emails you send so they don't seem like overkill.
Absolutely. So Alexa, just so you know, I just sent you back control of those slides. So if you need to change any of those at the end there, you'll be able to do that.
Okay.
So how do you, could you repeat that question for me one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. So this question comes from Kathleen, and she'd like to know how you would best balance the amount of emails you send out so they don't seem like overkill.
Yeah, great question. So this is one of those kind of it depends questions, and I'm going to give you some reasoning why I'm saying that, and then I'll also give you some kind of rules of thumb, though, at least get yourself started, but you really want to dig in and try to figure out what is best for you and your particular audience, okay? But one way to think about it is that, at the very least, we recommend that you send to your customers at least once a month. And the reason we say that is because it's frequency enough that it doesn't feel like too much, and it's not infrequent enough where somebody is going to kind of forget about you. You remember my example from earlier in the session where we talked about Peter and his sometimes monthly email newsletter that ends up being, once every 3 months or 4 months or sometimes longer than that. Is really, you get into this situation where people could potentially just forget about your business, and then they're not really thinking about it at all. And then when they do receive something, they're like, wait, what's this? And then they might actually forget they even signed up for it and then just mark you as spam and just kind of ignore you altogether. The other thing here to think about in terms of it not feeling kind of like too much is that if you, again, focus on providing value, are you sending relevant information? Are you sending things that people are interested in? If you do that, that's where you'll start to see that people are actually, it doesn't feel like too much, because with each of those emails that you're sending to them, they're coming at the right moments, they're coming at the right time, and they feel valuable to them, right? They're getting the things that they actually want to receive from you. I think it's when you start doing things that are kind of too much, just talking about you all the time and not providing that value, that's when people start to feel like overwhelmed by emails. But if it's stuff that I'm interested in and stuff that I'm excited to receive, that's the place that you want to be. So that way, when people do receive those things from you, they feel good about it. And the reason I said that sometimes it depends on what it is, well, it really, in terms of frequency, is that it really depends on your audience, and it depends on the expectations that you're setting for people, right? And so let's say, for example, you have on your website, sign up to get my daily tips on such and such, right? Well, if somebody signs up for that, they're expecting to get tips from you daily. So if you send them an email daily, it's not going to feel like too much because that's what they signed up for, right? But if you say, I'm only going to send you an email once a month, and then you end up sending them, 10 emails a month or 10 within a week, right? That's when people start to, like, wait, this isn't what I signed up for. And so a lot of times what you can do, and this is what's really cool about this idea of sending like a kind of a gauge interest email and see if people are interested in stuff, is like then you can set their expectations on what to receive then. Or if there's a particular time, maybe you're going to send a little bit more frequently because you have something coming up. As long as you set those expectations with people, and again, you're looking to provide value, people are going to be okay with receiving that. It's when you start going down that road of not actually giving them anything useful that then emails feel too much and start to get annoying. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, Dave, our next question comes to us from Carolyn. And she says that she personalizes her emails with first names. However, she understands that email marketing needs to go beyond that with personalization. Can you explain exactly what that means?
Yeah, Caroline, that's a great question, and you're exactly right. Right, it does go beyond the first name, and I think it goes to the idea of one, feeling like that message is written to them, and not like you're just trying to send out information to a whole bunch of people at once. It should feel, imagine if you're in your shop or somebody's having a conversation with you and they have a question about something, and when they get, when you're talking to somebody, you're there, you're present, you're having that conversation with them, and you're helping that person kind of, with whatever their question is, and you're helping them solve that. Your email should really start to feel the same way. So that way, you'll start to feel as though this person really understands me, understands what I'm saying and needing. And so you want to really start to think about that. And then again, time and relevance that we mentioned earlier in the session is that those are two important things, right? And so I think I gave the example of, somebody looking or sending information to somebody about, buying their first home when they're really looking to sell their first home, right? And so if you know who the people you are and you're using your contact list in a way that it's what we call a segmentation, or you're grouping these contacts in the right way, and a simple example would be, donors versus volunteers to a nonprofit organization, or maybe it's first-time buyers versus, VIP customers or something like that. Knowing who each of those people are and creating those groups of people so you can actually think about, oh, these are my VIP customers. I'm going to do something really special for them. So I'm going to provide this particular thing. All of a sudden, that information feels relevant and more personal to the people receiving it. On the opposite end of that, maybe it's a person who has never bought anything from you, and they might have a lot of questions that they want to address or have addressed before they actually take that step to purchase something from you. And so maybe you're sending them answers to like the frequently asked questions you get from people, and you're helping them kind of start to remove those objections so that they're more likely to buy from you. But all of that information feels really relevant and personal to them because they're actually answering questions that they likely have going through their mind. So when you can do those things and kind of pull that stuff all together, like you're really going to see your email marketing start to really take off and work really well for you if you're struggling in those areas.
Okay, Dave, our next question comes from Jenny. For a brand new business that doesn't have any customers yet, is there an audience that they can view as a pseudo customers, those who they can think of as retaining instead of gaining?
So let me, I'm just looking at that question one more time. So for a brand new business that doesn't have any customers yet, is there an audience we can view as our pseudo customers? Oh, those who we can think of. Yes. So, okay. So yeah, there's a couple of things you can do. And I'm in the field of content marketing. And one of the things that we do is we create a lot of content in relation to how small businesses can market themselves, right? And a lot of these people may not be, they may be prospects for a business, but they're not actually our customers yet. And so One of the things that you can do is you can, start to figure out what are the questions or what are the things that you can talk about or maybe create content around or make one of those offers up where, you say in exchange for an email address, we're going to give you, something about this. If you're kind of creating information in those areas where you're engaging a particular group of people and you're providing value to that group of people, but they're not your customers yet, again, you keep them top of mind and you can build your email list and you can build those things. And then through conversations that you're having with them, hopefully when they're in the market for what you sell, that they're going to be thinking of you first because they have that relationship with you. And if you don't even have a product or service yet, maybe through those conversations that you're having with people and the content you're creating to kind of help them or keep their interest or entertain them with that particular topic that you're speaking about, you may actually understand that, hey, these people are actually really looking for something in this area, and that could be something you actually create a product or service for, and then you have this group of people that you already know that are going to be interested in it, and then it's all about making the offer to these, as you call them, pseudo customers, right? Like these are people that are engaged with your business. And the other thing to think about is that sometimes those pseudo customers may never become customers, but they're people that engage with your business. But what they do is they actually spread the word about your business. And so they'll tell other people or they'll share your content or do things like that or engage with you on social media that may in turn bring an audience to your, bring a customer to your business. And so both very valuable. Just don't get seduced by too many pseudo customers because you actually do want to do some business, right?
Okay, next question comes from Trish. Can we turn off the dynamic sign-up form on secondary pages of the website and just have it on the homepage?
So Constant Contact specific, I believe at the moment you install the code on your website and it will pop up on all pages on your site, but we're in the process of adding some new features to that, and so that will be something you'll be able to do in the future.
Okay, our next question, this comes from Elena. Dave, how do you avoid customers abusing email discounts? So for example, they use a dummy email to get the free content or discounts.
Very good. That's a great question. So, well, one of the things I think, I'd want to think about is, that's always a potential issue. I think maybe you want to look at some things on the back end, and maybe even just take a look and see like how often does that happen to you first before. I think it's a concern, but I think we want to look and see if is that something that really happens as much as you think it may happen. Because for the most part, actually, people are pretty honest with these things, and it doesn't happen as much. I think it just depends on the type of business that you particularly have. But I would actually look at how maybe you process those things with your whatever you're using to actually as your online store, if you have one of those, or your point of sale system. So maybe you can create things that give you, unique codes that people use. I think, it's tough to say because I think people who are going to abuse the system always try to abuse the system. And at a certain level, there's only so much you can do. But hopefully, even if those discounts happen, they're happening, like even the new business you're getting because of the discount outweighs the discount, if that makes sense. And doesn't happen enough that where it's going to ruin your business in any way.
Okay, our next question comes from Jenny. How do these dynamic forms work in mobile?
Yeah, so just the same as they would on your website in general. Hopefully your website itself is set up to be mobile optimized. It's mobile responsive, meaning that if you look at it on your phone, you look at it on your tablet, or you look at it on your desktop, it's going to, change itself based on the size of the screen that you're looking at it on. But these mobile forms are also mobile optimized, and they do the same type of thing where they'll, if you're looking at it on a mobile device and that form pops up, it will be optimized for the mobile device.
Okay, our next question comes from Angie. And Angie asks what would you suggest for a dynamic sign-up form for a professional services business that can't offer discounts or free services?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So not knowing what the actual services are, I think one of the things that you want to think about is get really into the situation of your ideal customer, right? Or if you have a customer already who is someone you would classify as your ideal customer, like, there's somebody that you really enjoy working with, there's somebody that pays you on time, like all of those cool things that are really good for your business, take them out for lunch or take them out for a coffee or something, and ask them, what are some things that, would be helpful to you as, in relation to kind of your product or service, that would be a useful resource or something like that. And then once you start to understand, what it is that they go through day to day in relation to your product or service, like maybe you can create some type of asset, or maybe it's a checklist, maybe it's a white paper, as you say, or maybe it's something like that that isn't a discount, but something that they would find extremely valuable because it helps them do what they're trying to achieve in a better way. And if you can create something around that idea, you're going to find people are kind of clamoring to get that resource, right? That's the key. You really want to be providing value with that resource. So I would start there to start to figure out what that thing could be.
Okay, Dave, our next question comes from Irene. Irene asks, for current customers who signed up before the discount and promotions, how do you make them happy when they see this new offer for new customers signing up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing, right? I think that's one of those things where it's probably happens less than you think it will. It's somewhat similar to like offering a money back guarantee, right? Like sometimes those people actually, you offer it and it helps ease their objections or the potential like risk going into it. But most people don't actually ask for their money back, right? So it's the same type of thing. I think, you may see that I mentioned the kind of a VIP list, right? Or a current customers list or something like that. I would think, what is the thing that you can offer them that is also valuable to them that may not be a bit discount? Or if, maybe it's one or two people, maybe hey, I can offer you this particular discount as well too. But hopefully that doesn't cause you too much problems. I wouldn't think it necessarily would. But I would think of what are the things that you can do. We mentioned the reasons why people subscribe, right? To receive those promotions, discounts, to receive exclusive content, and also to show their support for an organization. And so, as you think across those three things, I would be thinking about, okay, great. What is the way that we can, yes, offer something to new customers or potential prospects, but then also what are the things that we can do that, are unique or exclusive to the VIP customers that will also make them happy as well.
Okay, next question. This one comes from Carrie. Is there a way to obtain the email addresses of those that visit their website without them filling out any kind of form?
So not that I am aware of. I think there are different things you can do in terms of, like, let's say if this kind of gets advanced, right? If you're using Facebook or you're trying to get, things that way that you can, cookie people and you can do things, but in actually getting the email address, you actually need people to give permission for that and submit that themselves. And that's actually better for you. And what we recommend that you do is just at the beginning of that stage, you want to just ask for the essential information that you need to get, because obviously for the more information that you ask for, there's more forms to fill out. The likelihood of people filling out that information gets less and less. And so the simpler you can make that, we typically recommend, ask just for the email address to start, and you can collect more information over time, or the email address and maybe their first name or something like that. Again, depends on the nature of your business, but you're going to be in a better situation when you're using something where you're actually having to have the person take that act of opting in. because there's a psychological component to that that says, yes, that's the person clicking and taking the action to say, I want that, that gets them engaged in the process of engaging with your business. And that's going to typically work out better for you in the long run.
All right. Our next question comes from Marita. And Marita asks, at what point would you suggest transitioning your email list to a monthly paid membership site?
So I'm sorry. Okay, so at one point we should transition into a monthly paid membership. Oh, so that's a good question, right? So, okay, so this is. I'm assuming then if it's a monthly paid membership site, you're regularly providing some information to people with the nature of your particular business. And, you know, a really good way that I have heard this talked about before is by someone, a marketing strategist. His name is Sean D'Souza. And he runs a website called psychotactics.com. And he always puts it in a good way. And he says you give away the ideas, but you sell the system, right? And that meaning if you're giving a bunch of people ideas on how they could potentially do things, you could do it like this, you can do it like that. Even those ideas alone are valuable if they know how to execute on those ideas. And a lot of times what you can do is, if you're giving away ideas and then people start engaging with those ideas and you start hearing people go like, you know, they're asking more questions about, well, how do I actually do this? Like that might be the perfect time for you to say, well, I'm actually going to put together a paid website where you can actually learn how to do this. And then you can start, you know, taking those questions you get to people and giving them the system, or they'll pay for that system on how to actually do that. So that's, you know, maybe one way I'd think about looking at it. And that'll get you to the point where it actually makes sense to charge people for a paid membership.
Okay. Our next question comes from Joanne. And Joanne would like to know, if a customer opts out of your emails, how can you communicate with them after that?
So you can't through email. And that's the reason for that, you know, as it's an opt-in channel, it's also an opt-out channel. And that's good, right? Because like a lot of times if people do not or opt out of your marketing emails, they are opting out because they don't want to receive those anymore. And it may be because they either have moved to a different location, or they, you know, sometimes they change their email address and so they resubscribe with another address. But I think that's the situation where if you're going to communicate with them, you're going to need to communicate with them on kind of their schedule in the sense of, you know, if they come into your store, you need to communicate with them there. But sometimes emails there's a difference too between transactional emails and marketing emails. And so if you need to contact them in relation to the usage of a product or service, so let's say you have to send them a privacy policy or something like that, like you need to be able to send them as your business relationship. But if they're no longer a customer with you, they can also just say, you know, I don't want to receive that anymore. So, but I think the thing to think about is that if somebody does say that or unsubscribe an email, like you can't send to those people anymore. And that's actually more beneficial for you and protects the customer as well.
Okay, Dave, we have time for one last question. This
Great.
One comes to us from Leah. And Leah would like to know how to get large amounts of new people to your email list, and how do you increase the open rate?
Yeah, great. And so, yeah, I think this actually is a great question to end on, because I think it's another summation of the things that we talked about here today, right? One, the first thing is really understand who it is your customer is and who you're trying to reach with your business, and you know, offer things to them. And what you'll want to do is, you know, provide value. Don't just ask for email list. Figure out what it is that you're offering in exchange for that email list. That will be one of the ways that you'll be able to get more people interested in giving that email address to you. Sorry, I said email list. And then once you do that, the better you know them, the more you're going to be able to provide them information that's going to feel timely and relevant to them. And the other piece of it would be to start to look for ways that you can actually, as I mentioned a little earlier, is group those contacts into like characteristics or like interests. So that way, you know, when you're sending them things, They're going to be most interested. You're sending it to the people that are most interested in it. And you're going to find that increasing your open rates, increasing your click-through rates, and increasing your business.
Okay. Those are all the questions that we have time for in this session. A survey will launch here in just a moment, and we would appreciate if you could take just a couple minutes to complete the survey and let us know your feedback regarding this webinar today. Also, we hope that you will enjoy the rest of the virtual conference, talking with mentors in the mentoring hall, networking with other business owners in the networking lounge, chatting with industry experts, and picking up free business resources in the exhibit hall. We hope that you will join us for the next webinar, starting in 30 minutes, creating and sustaining a strong social presence. And remember, we have more webinars taking place tomorrow and Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the SBA, SCORE, and Constant Contact, I'd like to thank you all for attending this webinar and give a very big thank you to Dave Charest for presenting with us today. Dave, thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexa, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope it was useful for you.
Thanks, and take care.
All right. 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. Thanks for tuning in, listening, and give thanks to somebody still mic. See what they're gonna say. I wonder if they know they're still mic'd. Okay, anyway. So yeah, that was a webinar done by Constant Contact regarding just being in touch with our clients and consumers, our network, our potential customers, our community, depending on what you do it for. Excuse me, I have to stretch. Just staying connected, and that's important. So the next one is in 30 minutes, which means it's an hour long. So it's 5:30. Yeah, I'm not sure I'll do this next one. So I think I'm going to go ahead and bow out here. Got to prepare for the class that I'm teaching and prepare for what I have to do. But it's good to be a part of the, I believe it's the second annual Small Business Week Virtual Conference, United States, done by the US SBA, United States Small Business Association. And much appreciation. This is TRUthe Media bringing you this content. Now it is in historical and historical archives as far as moving forward and really making things happen in business for our network and our community. Peace and blessings, be more. And have a wonderful, wonderful day and week. We'll see you here tomorrow when the virtual conference continues. One love.